There's a moment that happens for a lot of people after they turn 60. They're standing in the grocery store, staring at a bag of mixed nuts, and they think, wait, are these actually good for me? Or have I been eating the wrong ones my whole life? And the honest answer is it depends. Because not all nuts are created equal, and when you're over 60, your body has very specific needs that are completely different from what they were in your 30s or 40s. Some nuts can genuinely transform your heart health, protect your brain, reduce inflammation in your joints, and even help you manage your weight with ease. But there are also certain nuts and certain ways of eating them that can silently work against you, raising inflammation, spiking blood pressure, or interfering with medications that many seniors take every day. Today, I'm going to walk you through all of it. I'm going to tell you exactly which nuts you should be eating after 60, why they matter so much for your specific health needs right now, and which ones you need to be very careful about or eliminate entirely. This is the kind of information your doctor wishes they had more time to sit down and explain to you. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to have a clear, confident plan for one of the simplest and most powerful dietary upgrades you can make for your health. But before I get into all of that, I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want to hear from you. Have you been eating nuts regularly as part of your diet? Do you think of them as a healthy snack, or have you been avoiding them because you heard they were too high in fat or too high in calories? Drop your answer in the comments below. Tell me which nuts you love, which ones you've been eating, or if you've been avoiding them altogether. Because your experience matters, and honestly, knowing where you're starting from helps me help you better. I read every comment, and I love hearing from this community. So go ahead and comment right now. I'll be here. All right, let's get into it. And I want to start by addressing something that holds a lot of people back. For decades, nuts got a bad reputation because of their fat content. People were told to avoid fatty foods, and nuts, being naturally high in fat, got swept up in that wave of nutritional fear. But here's what the research has consistently shown us over the past 30 years. The type of fat in most nuts is not the kind that hurts you. It's the kind that heals you. We're talking about monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, the same category of fats found in olive oil, and these fats are deeply anti inflammatory. They support cardiovascular health, they help your brain function at a higher level, and they actually assist your body in absorbing fat soluble vitamins like vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. These are vitamins that become increasingly critical as we age, and ironically, they require fat in your diet to be absorbed properly. So, when you eat a handful of the right nuts, you're not just getting protein and fat. You're creating the perfect internal environment for your body to actually use the nutrients you're feeding it. That's a powerful concept, and I want you to hold on to it as we go through each nut. Let's start with what I personally consider one of the most important nuts for anyone over 60, and that is the walnut. If I could only choose one nut for seniors, it would be this one, without hesitation. Here's why. Walnuts are one of the very few plant based sources of ALA, which is a type of omega 3 fatty acid. Now, omega 3s are famous for their role in heart health, but their benefits go so much deeper than that, especially as we age. Omega 3 fatty acids are powerfully anti inflammatory. Inflammation is at the root of nearly every chronic condition that becomes more common after 60: arthritis, cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, type 2 diabetes, even certain cancers. When you reduce chronic low grade inflammation in your body, you are addressing the root cause of so many of these conditions simultaneously. Walnuts help you do that naturally every single day with something as simple as a small handful as a snack. But that's not all. Walnuts contain a compound called ellagic acid, which is a polyphenol with powerful antioxidant properties. Antioxidants neutralize free radicals, unstable molecules that damage your cells and accelerate aging. After 60, your body produces fewer of its own antioxidants, so getting them through food becomes even more essential. Studies have specifically looked at walnut consumption in older adults and found measurable improvements in memory, cognitive processing speed, and mental flexibility. One study published in a respected nutrition journal found that adults who regularly consumed walnuts showed significantly better cognitive performance compared to those who didn't, even after adjusting for other lifestyle factors. Now, I want to be clear, no single food is a cure or a guarantee, and I always encourage you to speak with your own healthcare provider about your personal situation. But the evidence around walnuts and brain health in aging adults is genuinely impressive. I recommend about a quarter cup of raw walnuts per day. That's roughly 7 whole walnuts as a starting point. You can eat them as a snack, toss them into oatmeal, add them to a salad, or blend them into a smoothie. They're versatile, widely available, and affordable. Next, I want to talk about almonds because these are another nutritional powerhouse for seniors that deserve a lot of attention. One of the biggest health concerns after 60 is bone health. Osteoporosis and low bone density affect millions of older adults, and while most people think of calcium and vitamin D when they think about bones, there are other nutrients that are equally critical, and almonds are loaded with them. Almonds are one of the best food sources of magnesium, which plays a direct role in bone density. About 60% of your body's magnesium is stored in your bones, and magnesium works in close partnership with calcium and vitamin D to maintain strong, resilient bone tissue. Research has found that magnesium deficiency is associated with lower bone mineral density and a higher risk of fractures. Almonds are also rich in vitamin E, which is a fat soluble antioxidant that protects your cells from oxidative damage, supports immune function, and has been shown to help protect skin health, something that matters more as our skin becomes thinner and more vulnerable as we age. And let's talk about blood sugar for a moment. After 60, insulin sensitivity tends to decline, which means your body has to work harder to manage blood sugar levels. This is a precursor to type 2 diabetes, and it's something millions of seniors deal with without even realizing it. Almonds have a low glycemic impact, and when eaten with other foods, they can actually blunt the blood sugar spike from a meal. Studies have shown that adding almonds to a meal can reduce postprandial blood glucose levels. That's the rise in blood sugar after eating significantly. For anyone managing prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, or just trying to keep their energy levels stable throughout the day, that's a meaningful benefit. I suggest about 20 to 23 almonds per day, roughly a small handful raw or dry roasted without added salt or oil. And if you have a nut allergy or any concerns about specific conditions like kidney stones, please check with your doctor because almonds are high in oxalates, which can be an issue for some individuals. Now I want to talk about pistachios, and I think these are one of the most underrated nuts in the world of senior health. Let me start with something that surprises a lot of people. Pistachios are actually one of the highest protein nuts available. For every ounce, you're getting about 6 grams of protein. Why does that matter after 60? Because one of the most significant and underappreciated health challenges of aging is something called sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle mass. After the age of 60, adults can lose up to 3% of their muscle mass per year if they're not actively working to prevent it. Muscle loss affects your strength, your balance, your metabolism, and your independence. Getting adequate protein every single day is one of the most effective ways to slow sarcopenia, and pistachios offer a convenient, delicious way to add more complete protein to your diet. But there's more. Pistachios are incredibly rich in lutein and zeaxanthin, which are two carotenoids that accumulate specifically in the macula of the eye. These compounds act as natural filters for blue light and help protect the photoreceptor cells in your retina from oxidative damage. Age related macular degeneration is the leading cause of vision loss in adults over 60. And research has consistently shown that higher dietary intake of lutein and zeaxanthin is associated with a significantly reduced risk of developing this condition. Your eyes are irreplaceable, and protecting them through your food choices is one of the most proactive things you can do. Pistachios are also a prebiotic food, meaning they feed the beneficial bacteria in your gut microbiome. After 60, gut health becomes increasingly important. Your digestive tract produces fewer enzymes, gut motility slows down, and the diversity of your microbiome tends to decline. Eating prebiotic rich foods like pistachios actively supports a healthier, more diverse microbiome, which in turn supports immune function, mood, and even cognitive health through the gut brain axis. I recommend about 49 pistachios, which is 1 ounce per day. Choose unsalted, in shell varieties when possible, because shelling them slows you down naturally, which actually helps prevent overeating. Let me tell you about Brazil nuts next, and I want you to pay very close attention here because these are unique in a way that no other nut can claim. Brazil nuts are the richest dietary source of selenium on the planet. A single Brazil nut can contain anywhere from 68 to 91 micrograms of selenium, and the recommended daily intake for adults is just 55 micrograms. So, one Brazil nut essentially meets your entire daily selenium requirement. Why does selenium matter so much after 60? Because selenium is essential for thyroid function. Your thyroid gland regulates your metabolism, your energy levels, your body temperature, your heart rate, and dozens of other critical processes. Thyroid dysfunction becomes more common with age, and selenium deficiency is a known contributing factor to thyroid disorders. Selenium is also a powerful antioxidant. It's a key component of an enzyme called glutathione peroxidase, which is one of your body's primary internal antioxidant defense systems. Additionally, research has suggested that adequate selenium intake may play a protective role against certain types of cancer. And given that cancer risk increases significantly after 60, this is not a small thing. However, and this is critically important, Brazil nuts are the one nut where you absolutely can and should be careful not to overdo it. Because selenium can be toxic in high doses. Selenium toxicity, called selenosis, can cause hair loss, nail brittleness, nausea, fatigue, and in severe cases, nerve damage. I recommend no more than 2 Brazil nuts per day. In fact, 1 or 2 is ideal. You do not need to eat a whole handful. More is not better with Brazil nuts. 1 or 2 every day is a simple, affordable, and highly effective way to support your thyroid and your antioxidant defenses. Now, let's move on to cashews because I know these are a fan favorite, and the good news is they earn their place on this list for seniors. Cashews are particularly rich in copper, a trace mineral that most people don't think much about, but that becomes increasingly important with age. Copper plays a vital role in maintaining the integrity of connective tissue, including the collagen and elastin that keep your joints, skin, and blood vessels strong and flexible. It's also essential for the production of myelin, the protective sheath that surrounds your nerve fibers. As we age, myelin can degrade, and maintaining adequate copper intake helps support the health of your entire nervous system. Cashews are also a good source of zinc, which is critical for immune function, and I don't need to tell you how important a strong immune system becomes after 60. Zinc is involved in the production and activation of immune cells, the inflammatory response, and wound healing. Many older adults are mildly zinc deficient without knowing it, and this contributes to slower healing, more frequent illness, and a generally sluggish immune response. Cashews offer a tasty and convenient way to support your zinc levels daily. They also contain heart healthy monounsaturated fats and have been associated in research with improvements in triglyceride levels and overall lipid profiles. One caveat: cashews are slightly higher in carbohydrates than other nuts. So, if you're managing blood sugar carefully or following a very low carb diet, keep your serving modest. About 18 cashews, 1 ounce per day, is a reasonable and beneficial amount for most people. Now, I want to spend a moment on pecans because they tend to be overlooked in health conversations, but they absolutely should not be. Pecans have one of the highest antioxidant contents of any nut. They are particularly rich in gamma tocopherol, a specific form of vitamin E that research suggests may be especially effective at neutralizing certain types of free radicals, particularly those produced by nitrogen, which are associated with inflammation and cellular damage. Pecans are also rich in manganese, a trace mineral that supports bone health, blood sugar regulation, and the function of an important antioxidant enzyme called superoxide dismutase. And let's talk about their fiber content. Pecans are a good source of both soluble and insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber feeds your gut bacteria and helps lower LDL cholesterol by binding to bile acids in the digestive tract. Insoluble fiber supports regular bowel movements and reduces the risk of constipation, which is a genuinely common and uncomfortable issue for many adults after 60 due to slowed gut motility. A small handful of raw or dry roasted pecans, about 19 halves or 1 ounce, several times per week is a wonderful addition to a senior health focused diet. I also want to mention macadamia nuts briefly because they are the highest fat nut on this list, But the fat is overwhelmingly monounsaturated, specifically a fatty acid called palmitoleic acid, which is relatively rare in the diet and has been associated in research with improved insulin sensitivity and reduced inflammation. Macadamia nuts are also very low in omega 6 fatty acids, which is worth noting because the typical Western diet has a severely imbalanced omega 6 to omega 3 ratio, and excess omega 6 promotes inflammation. For anyone dealing with inflammatory conditions, joint pain, cardiovascular issues, autoimmune conditions, reducing omega 6 intake while increasing omega 3s is a valuable dietary strategy, and macadamia nuts support that goal. They're calorie dense, so moderation matters. About 10 to 12 macadamia nuts per day is a good target. Now, and this is the part one really need you to pay attention to, let me talk about the nuts and nut products that you need to be very careful with or avoid altogether after 60. The first category is salted nuts. And I know this seems obvious, but it's worth stating clearly because so many of the nuts sold in stores are loaded with sodium. After 60, blood pressure management becomes one of the most important health priorities you have. High blood pressure, hypertension, is a leading risk factor for stroke, heart attack, kidney disease, and cognitive decline. Even a modest, consistent reduction in sodium intake can meaningfully lower blood pressure. When you buy salted mixed nuts, a single serving can contain anywhere from 100 to 200 milligrams of sodium, and let's be honest, most of us don't stop at one serving. That sodium adds up fast. Always reach for raw or unsalted varieties, or dry roasted without added salt. This single switch can make a real difference in your cardiovascular health over time. The second category is honey roasted or sugar coated nuts. These products take something genuinely nutritious and compromise it with added sugars that drive blood sugar spikes, contribute to inflammation, and can accelerate processes like glycation, where sugar molecules bind to proteins and damage them, which is linked to aging, stiffening of the arteries, and worsening of diabetic complications. If you see honey roasted peanuts, yogurt covered almonds, or candied pecans, these are essentially candy with a health halo, and I want you to see them for what they are. Save those for an occasional treat if you love them, but they should never be your everyday nut of choice. Third, and this is a big one, I need to talk about commercially processed peanut butter and mixed nut butters. Now, peanuts themselves are technically legumes, not tree nuts, but they're consumed in similar ways, and I want to address them here. Peanuts are a very affordable, protein rich food, and natural peanut butter, made with just peanuts and sometimes a touch of salt, can absolutely be part of a healthy diet for seniors. The problem is with processed peanut butters that contain hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils. These are sources of trans fats, and trans fats are genuinely harmful, full stop. They raise LDL cholesterol, lower HDL cholesterol, increase inflammation, and are associated with a significantly elevated risk of heart disease. Many countries have banned partially hydrogenated oils, but traces can still appear in certain processed products, and some international brands still use them. Always read the label. If you see hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated in the ingredient list, put it back on the shelf. Fourth, quantity and calorie awareness. I want to be honest with you here because I've given you a lot of wonderful information about the benefits of nuts, and I don't want that enthusiasm to lead anyone astray. Nuts are calorie dense. A single ounce, which looks like a very small amount in your hand, contains anywhere from 160 to 200 calories depending on the type. For older adults who are less physically active than they once were, calorie management matters. The research consistently shows that nuts are associated with healthy weight management, partly because their protein, fat, and fiber content increases satiety and reduces overall food intake. But that benefit only holds when you're eating them in reasonable amounts, not by the cupful. A small handful, 1 ounce, per day of one or two types of nuts is a sensible, health promoting target for most people. More than that, and you may be inadvertently adding excess calories that work against your goals. Fifth, if you are taking blood thinners such as warfarin, I want you to be aware that several nuts, particularly walnuts and to a lesser extent almonds, contain vitamin K and omega, 3 fatty acids that can influence how these medications work in your body. This doesn't mean you need to avoid them entirely, but it does mean that consistency is key. Eat roughly the same amount of these foods from day to day so that your medication levels can be calibrated reliably. And always let your doctor know about any significant changes in your diet. This is not about fear, it's about being smart and proactive with your health. Sixth, I want to specifically mention the issue of mold and aflatoxins, which is a real concern that doesn't get enough attention. Certain nuts, particularly peanuts, Brazil nuts, pistachios, and corn nuts, can be contaminated with aflatoxins, which are toxic compounds produced by a specific type of mold. Aflatoxins are among the most potent natural carcinogens known, and long term exposure is a serious health concern. The way to minimize this risk is straightforward: always buy nuts from reputable, well known brands with proper quality control. Store your nuts in a cool, dry place, or better yet, in the refrigerator or freezer, which significantly slows mold growth. Never eat nuts that look discolored, shriveled, or that smell musty or off in any way. And avoid buying nuts from bulk bins where storage conditions and turnover rates may be inconsistent. These are simple precautions that eliminate most of the risk. Let me also say a word about macadamia nuts and dogs. I know this seems like an odd detour in a health video for seniors, but I mention it because a lot of my viewers have pets in the home, and macadamia nuts are genuinely toxic to dogs, even in small amounts. Just make sure they're stored securely and out of reach of your four legged family members. Now, I want to bring all of this together in a practical way because information is only valuable when it translates into action. Here is what a smart, senior focused approach to nuts actually looks like in real life. In the morning, add a small handful of walnuts to your oatmeal or yogurt. This gets you your omega 3s, your antioxidants, and your brain supporting nutrients first thing. As a mid morning or afternoon snack, enjoy a small portion of almonds or pistachios, unsalted, raw, or dry roasted. This stabilizes your blood sugar between meals, keeps your hunger in check, and delivers magnesium, vitamin E, and eye protective carotenoids. Once or twice a day, have one or two Brazil nuts, literally just one or two, to meet your selenium needs. Pop them in your mouth like a supplement because, in a sense, that's exactly what they are. A few times per week, incorporate cashews or pecans into a meal, tossed into a stir fry, mixed into a grain bowl, or blended into a sauce. Keep a small container of raw, unsalted mixed nuts in your bag or car for when you're out and hunger strikes, so you're never reaching for processed, unhealthy snack alternatives. And make it a habit to read labels on anything prepackaged. Look for short ingredient lists, no added sugars, no hydrogenated oils, and minimal sodium. That's it. That's the practical framework. It's not complicated, it's not expensive, and it can start today. I want to close by saying something that I feel deeply about, and it's this: after 60, you are not at the end of your health journey. You are in one of the most important chapters of it. The choices you make now, small, consistent, daily choices about what you eat, how you move, how you sleep, how you manage stress, these choices compound over time in the most profound ways. Every walnut you choose instead of a bag of chips, every handful of almonds instead of skipping a meal, every Brazil nut you add to your morning routine. These are small acts of self care that add up to something extraordinary. I've seen people transform their energy levels, their joint comfort, their cognitive sharpness, their blood pressure numbers, and their overall sense of vitality in their 60s, 70s, and beyond simply by paying more intentional attention to the quality of what they eat. You deserve to feel strong, clear headed, and full of energy. Not just in spite of your age, but because you've lived long enough to know exactly what matters and you're choosing to take care of yourself. That is something worth celebrating. If this video helped you today, I want you to do three things. First, drop a comment below. Tell me which nut you're going to add to your diet this week, or share any questions you have. I read every single one. Second, give this video a like because it helps other seniors find this information and take better care of themselves too. And third, subscribe and hit the notification bell because I share new health information for people over 60 every single week, the kind of clear, practical, empathetic guidance that helps you live better, feel better, and thrive at every age. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of yourself because you absolutely are worth it.